Of the many different ways that the narcissist is described, today I want to focus on grandiosity. Have you ever slowed down to think about what it must feel like to live in a superficial and grandiose world? On the surface, you may think that this is quite a pleasant place to reside. Who wouldn't enjoy being filled with feelings and thoughts of omnipotence? However, this perspective only scratches the surface of understanding grandiosity and omnipotence. You see, grandiosity can manifest in any number of different ways depending on the individual and the type or the cluster of narcissism. Some common ways that it presents itself are well known: exaggerated sense of self-importance, constant fantasies of power, control, beauty, an ongoing need for attention and admiration, just to name a few. Another way that grandiosity presents itself, and this one is oftentimes overlooked in the social media content, is through what we call in my field, the field of psychoanalysis, intolerable suffering. Picture this scenario. If you or someone you know complains of intolerable suffering, you may feel that you're being tormented by your partner or someone very close to you in your life, like a good friend, a colleague, or a family member. You constantly feel humiliated, judged, and criticized by them. And in general, you get the sense or have this feeling that the world is more or less a cruel place. Now, this part may be a little bit more challenging to grasp, but we all know that the narcissist tends to project. Now, in part, these feelings that you harbor of constantly being judged or criticized is very possible that they are emanating from within and not from the external environment. Now, I know here you could try to convince me or convince yourself that you really are with this type of person, or your partner really is quite judging and critical. And even if that's the case, we would then have to wonder, why is it that you keep this type of person alive in your mind? I say in your mind, but in your life, but in your mind too, because my guess is, and this is sometimes what I find when working closely with these individuals, that if this voice wasn't emanating from without, it turns out, and I don't think you'll find this as such a surprise, that the narcissist tends to get this voice from within. The narcissist, of course, is very self-critical and judging. Now, one other alternative explanation is that you keep this kind of relationship alive, and again, in your life, because there's this feeling, maybe unconscious, that someday you're going to get it right. Someday this relationship is going to be perfect. And here is the irony and sort of the tragedy of this grandiosity that these individuals carry around. They are seduced and captivated by the promise of this perfect type of relationship or getting it perfectly right. In short, they're seduced by the promise of grandiosity, perfection, and omnipotence. Now, here's another twist that makes this even a little bit more interesting and complicated, is that even when this partner or good friend or parent, a family member, does give you something of value, it's rejected. In the narcissistic mindset, anything of value that's offered cannot be received because it's a threat to one's grandiosity and sense of omnipotence. How is it a threat, you may be asking? It's a threat because if one acknowledges that they were enriched by something that somebody gave them, that implies that there was a lack. In other words, that they had a need. They had a need for this, and that's why they appreciate getting something good from somebody else. And it's very common and pretty well known that the narcissist hates feelings of neediness and dependency. So therefore, any of that has to be rejected. By devaluing and attacking the contributions of something that's good, we're able to maintain this illusion of grandiosity and omnipotence. By devaluing and attacking the contributions of others, then one is able to maintain the illusion of the narcissistic grandiosity. Now, the really sad part of this is that these attacks leave one in a world that is inevitably loveless and cruel. But there is hope for these individuals. In my practice, I work closely with them to first demonstrate and show them what they are doing. In other words, this is just describing and showing them that when something of value is offered, which they don't even often see because they're so busy devaluing it, that it needs to be pushed away and attacked. The main task is to help them first see, then recognize, and eventually use an understanding, a richer or a loving world, which, by the way, is the only experience that's going to rescue them from this relentless pursuit of grandiosity and perfection, which I mentioned already, which of course leaves them in a very cruel and loveless place. Look, inevitably this stuff is very complicated. If I said anything that confused you, please leave a comment below or raise some questions. I'll try to pick them up in the next video. But we have to hold off there for today. Until next time, bye for now.